Awesome.
Okay, I'm here talking with Dr. Justine Lee, who is, oh geez, what don't you do, right? you're a famous worldwide lecturer, you're author of several books, you're author of several chapters in defining, veterinary textbooks. You're the CEO of VetGirl on the Run, which is a podcast educational system for veterinarians like myself, so we can learn about new and wonderful things. And you've got an incredibly busy schedule here, and you're working as an emergency veterinarian too, right? So on top of that, you do everything. So
classic veterinarian workaholic.
Yeah, I'm really glad you took the time out to spend some time talking to me today, and I think that you've been on my radio show before, Your Pet Matters, and I really appreciate you coming on for that. And it was really cool to find out you're Jersey born and bred.
That's right.
Even though I would say our weather here in Jersey is like Minnesota right now, but it's not like Minnesota.
I know. Actually, we're jealous because we hardly have any snow. So I actually want more snow.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I joke that it's very much like Canada here, where the snow from 2 snowstorms ago still remains on the ground right now.
Crazy.
Yeah. Okay, so since it is winter, I think, and since that you deal with a lot of the winter medical issues that pets have, and that since it's February, and it's February 4th, there's really 10 days left till Valentine's Day, you're going to be dealing with the post-Valentine's Day chocolate toxicity issues. So
that's right.
Why don't we talk about something like that? Why don't we talk about typical winter hazards and chocolate toxicity?
Sure. Well, I will say that the number one emergency that we end up seeing around Valentine's and actually any holiday, Christmas, Halloween, Easter, we seem to always associate holidays with chocolate. And unfortunately, we're not pet-proofing well. So, we're leaving chocolate around the house, under the Christmas tree, on the counters, and that's what dogs are getting into. And so an easy way for a pet owner to save themselves some money in a costly emergency room visit or hospitalization and to keep their pet safe is by simply keeping it out of reach. And it sounds like it's easy, but I've seen dogs counter surf. They can get that bag of chocolate off the counter. So when in doubt, they definitely want to make sure to keep the Valentine's chocolate out of reach. The good thing about chocolate, it's the dose that makes the poison. Small amount of, chocolate chips or white chocolate that barely has any theobromine in it. But the more dark and the more bitter chocolate is, the more dangerous it is. So when in doubt, I always tell people the sooner you recognize a poisoning, call your veterinarian, your emergency veterinarian, or ASPCA Animal Poison Control right away, because a lot of times we can help you induce vomiting at home, and the sooner we can treat it, the less expensive it'll be for you, and the safer it'll be for your dog.
And it's one of those things that builds up in the system, right? Because I do have clients that say, oh yeah, my dog got into chocolate for the 5th time or whatever, and it's like it's one of those things that I have to have the discussion about that, right? So it's theobromine it's non-toxic to us, but it's incredibly toxic to the liver of a dog, correct?
Yeah, and partly it's because most of us don't gorge on, 2 pounds of chocolate all at once the way dogs do. They don't have the discriminating palate quite as much. And unfortunately, they're much more sensitive to the drug theobromine. It's not so much that it builds up in their body chronically over time, but chocolate itself has a really long half-life. So it stays in the body for 72 hours. So when a dog is poisoned, they can actually show clinical signs for 2 to 3 days.
Ah, okay. And what kind of signs would you expect to see with that?
It depends on what dose they got into, but traditionally, at the dose of 20 mg per kg of theobromine, we can start to see chocolate diarrhea or chocolate vomiting. At higher doses, like 40 mg per kg, it can actually result in cardiovascular or heart effects, where it makes their heart really fast, it makes them have cardiac arrhythmias, makes them really hypertensive. And the third thing that we worry about are actually neurologic signs. So at really high doses, above 60 mg per kg, we can actually see agitation, tremors, and seizures. So most of the time, it's rarely fatal because most pet owners are smart enough to know that chocolate's poisonous. So when in doubt, you can check out a chocolate calculator or again, call an animal poison control for advice and get your vet right away so we can treat it.
Okay. What about other winter hazards that we can talk about, typical winter issues that pets can get into at this time of year?
Yeah, that's a great question. Everyone always says that cement or ice salt is poisonous. It's really not that big of a deal. So you don't have to go too crazy. There's actually bigger dangers out there. So if you're walking your dog on the sidewalk and your neighbor put out some, regular salt or some sidewalk salt, it's really usually calcium chloride or sodium chloride. It can definitely cause irritation or inflammation to the paws. If your dog licks it, they can definitely get potentially what we call salt poisoning. It can make them vomit. It can make their sodium high. But more of an issue is when dogs actually get into the whole container. And so again, most dogs don't do that. The safest thing to do is, when you're outside walking your dog, I just walk my dog through the snow on my yard to basically wipe his feet off. And then as soon as he comes into the house, I just wipe it off with a damp terry cloth.
And that's it. So well, I find it's more irritating and licking and so forth and things like that. Okay. Would you still say those pet safe products are still better in the sense, or?
Yeah, they're probably a little bit safer, and they're not sodium chloride, so they're not true table salt. They're calcium chloride or magnesium chloride or different types of salts. So they don't have the sodium. They're probably still irritating, but they're probably going to cause less vomiting if your dog ingests a large amount. So when in doubt, totally fine to use pet-safe salt.
Oh, go ahead.
And I'm very eco-friendly, so I recommend sand and kitty litter instead. Because the salt's really bad for the environment, and it washes off into the rivers. It makes water really brackish. So when in doubt, I try to minimize it anyway.
Okay. And have you ever come across dogs that eat the whole bag of salt? Like, I've never seen a dog go salt crazy.
Yeah, no, thankfully they don't, but I have seen dogs get into whole bags in the garage of like fertilizer or organic fertilizers like bone meal. So, remember, dogs eat their own feces, so they'll eat anything.
Okay. And what other winter hazards do we have to worry about for our pets out there?
A big one is antifreeze. Antifreeze, even pet-safe antifreeze, can be an issue. Regular antifreeze has something called ethylene glycol, and unfortunately it's really poisonous. So really just a couple of tablespoons or a couple of teaspoons for a cat can be poisonous. We always want to make sure to keep it out of reach. In fact, I never let my dog or my cat outside into the garage. And the main reason why is there can just be a few drips to the floor, and if they lick it up, it is 100% fatal without treatment. And in cats, we know that we have to treat it with an antidote within 3 hours or cats will die. So unfortunately, so potent, so dangerous. In dogs, we have to treat them really within 12 hours with the antidote. And thankfully, this one does have an antidote, but it's really expensive. So the antidote is called fomepizole, and it's about $1,500 a bottle because it's the same exact antidote they would use in human medicine. Safest thing, keep it out of reach. One way that dogs are getting into it, people are putting antifreeze in their car. In Minnesota, we have a lot of people who go up to the cabin and they always turn off the water, or they actually put antifreeze into the toilet so their toilet bowl doesn't freeze. If the dog's been in the car for a couple of hours, first thing they do when they run into the cabin, they drink out of the toilet. So when in doubt, multiple sources of antifreeze. So we want to keep that away from dogs and cats.
And they find it very sweet, right? It's palatable to them, right?
Yeah, that's right. In fact, some states have added a bittering agent to prevent children and humans and pets from drinking it. But supposedly it's got this sticky, slightly sweet taste, so dogs and cats can drink a little bit of it.
Okay. And so what organ system does it affect mostly?
Great point. Yep. It causes kidney failure. So unfortunately, when it causes kidney failure, it's oftentimes too late to treat. A really astute pet owner may notice some earlier clinical signs. It's basically an alcohol. So they may notice that their dog or their cat acts drunk. And if they notice that, get to a vet right away, because that's the number one sign that we see. Drunkenness and acting wobbly, walking really, like they're dazed, and then drinking a lot and urinating a lot. Those are the classic early signs that we see with antifreeze poisoning.